Greetings to the members of the Washington State Military Transition Council. I am Alfie Alvarado, Director of your Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs. I am an Army veteran, spouse of a veteran, and daughter of a veteran. I am also the chair of the Washington State Military Transition and Readiness Council. As we approach the better side of the COVID-19 recovery, I need to tell you that we have not been idle. Communities of practice in areas such as education, military spouse employment and licensure, apprenticeships, and others have continued their work to ensure we support our military community in their reentry to the civilian community. We made progress in the hiring of the first in the country military spouse liaison, supported by state funding, and we are excited to welcome Olivia Burley, who you will soon get to know well as we resume our support of our military veterans and their families. Through all this work, we have had a constant presence. Mark Sullivan. Mark is our principal advisor and consultant on all issues related to transition and coordination of our council's activities. I look forward to having an in-person kickoff in the near future in order to rekindle our relationships in support of our future and current veterans and their families. Thank you, and take it away, Mark.
Thank you, Alfie, and welcome everybody. So this is a recorded briefing for the Washington State Transition and Readiness Council's Executive Committee and other stakeholders on activities since our last meeting. Several of our military and other partners are in the middle of leadership changeovers, so we're providing a recorded update briefing rather than a spring Executive Committee meeting. For those of you who don't already know me, my name is Mark Sullivan, and I serve as Planning and Strategy Manager for the Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs and as an advisor to the Washington State Military Transition and Readiness Council. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or thoughts, and you can find my contact information at the end of this presentation. Executive Committee members and other stakeholders will remember that the Transition and Readiness Council has two standing strategy work groups focusing on 1, military spouse employment and career development, and 2, credential portability. These work groups meet every other month in January, March, May, July, and September. The Executive Committee also endorsed 2 new strategy work groups at their last meeting, focusing on 1, military family child care, and 2, outreach and education for both employers and veteran and military spouse job seekers. Both groups have been postponed pending hiring of additional staff support. However, we expect to initiate both groups now that we have hired a military spouse liaison. Also, as a reminder, the Council has 5 different communities of practice that support partner efforts around 1, veteran employment, 2, National Guard and Reserve employment, 3, higher education, 4, apprenticeship and other career-connected learning, and 5, entrepreneurship. These groups also meet every other month in February, April, June, August, and October. I should note that the communities of practice are not necessarily convened to develop new initiative. It's perfectly fine for them to meet just to network and share information on what's going on. Still, it's fairly common for them to collaborate on efforts that benefit all of the partners. Since our last meeting, the work groups and communities of practice have continued to meet and collaborate in anticipation of additional support when new staff come on board. Since then, WDVA has backfilled behind our apprenticeship program specialist, who has been on extended reserve deployment. WDVA has hired a military spouse liaison, which was funded by the state legislature in 2020. The First Lady conducted a tour of installations in Washington State, met with military spouses, and committed to supporting a variety of military spouse initiatives. And finally, several groups have had preliminary discussions and begun making preparations for supporting employers in recruiting, hiring, and retaining veterans and military spouses. Starting with our first strategy work group on military spouse careers, the group is working on 3 initiatives. The first initiative will focus on producing a central employer resource list for recruiting military spouses. This will include a one-stop location to find information on regional worksource offices, installation employment readiness programs, college career offices, and other nonprofit organizations that support military spouses. The second initiative will focus on distributing military spouse recruitment resources to employer support organizations. And when we're talking about support organizations, this will include organizations like SHRM chapters, the State SHRM Council, and local chambers of commerce. Finally, the third initiative will focus on producing employment-related resources for military spouses. Resources will potentially include fact sheets and webinars on topics ranging from job and career search support, remote and portable jobs, childcare resources, career-connected learning resources, credential portability, and interstate unemployment claims. The second strategy workgroup on credential portability is working on 4 initiatives. The first initiative will focus on informing credential portability legislation. This will include convening and meeting with key legislative stakeholders in September to prepare for the next state legislative session. On a related note, the Department of Defense has advised us that military spouse credential portability will be a factor in base decisions. This has most recently come up in the context of a decision whether to station a new squadron at Fairchild Air Force Base. While their preference is to have interstate compacts and interstate reciprocity agreements, they have also advised us that they will give consideration when a state provides opportunities for expedited provisional or temporary credentials. We are currently working with partners at the State Department of Licensing, Department of Health, and Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction to assess what programs currently exist and whether further administrative, regulatory, or legislative changes are necessary. The second initiative will focus on developing unified information materials for military spouses. Materials will include credential support services at state licensing and credentialing agencies for veterans and military spouses, as well as financial support for new credentials or training available through DoD or other organizations. The third initiative will focus on linking military spouses to credential-related education programs. This will begin with connecting to the existing Career Bridge initiative at the Workforce Training Board and looking for opportunities to connect veterans and military spouses to that effort. Finally, the fourth initiative will focus on promoting an Ask the Question effort. If you're not familiar with the Ask the Question initiative, it is a national effort to get government agencies to ask whether a customer is a veteran or military family member, with the purpose of connecting those customers with specialized support services. Our licensing agencies have already made significant progress over the past several years in encouraging veterans and military spouses to self-identify and connecting them with concierge and other services to help expedite their applications. This effort will focus on working with licensing agencies to integrate this effort into training and orientation for all customer service-facing staff. Next, we'll move to our 5 communities of practice. The first community of practice on military employment has elected to focus on 3 initiatives. The first initiative will focus on convening an ad hoc group of programs involved in employer engagement. There's a recognition that most of our partners have ongoing efforts to support employers that want to recruit, hire, and retain both veterans and military spouses. However, many of these initiatives are redundant and/or disconnected from each other. Partners want to look at connecting these efforts and seeing where there are opportunities for collaboration. The second initiative will be to continue cross-promoting partner events and activities on social media. This will be a continuation of prior efforts between partners to share and market activities and events that support veteran and military spouse employment. Finally, the third initiative will be to promote sharing of events on the new self-service WDVA events page, so that veterans and military spouses can find information in one central location. The second community of practice on National Guard and Reserve employment is focusing on 2 initiatives. The first initiative was to support a Guard and Reserve workshop at the Yes Vets Employer Showcase. This occurred during the annual Yes Vets recognition event in June and was well attended and received. The second initiative will be to host a Spokane Region Employer Symposium, which will focus on encouraging and supporting employers who want to hire Guard and Reserve members. This will be a redo of a prior live event that we had planned to produce before COVID social distancing restrictions. We're currently working with local partners to determine whether to hold a short virtual event or pivot back to in-person. The third community of practice on higher education is focusing on 3 initiatives. The first initiative will focus on exploring expansion of the VI-25 model to other regions and schools. For those of you who may not be familiar, VI-25 stands for Veterans Industry Education within 25 miles of JBLM. It's a program that was initiated by partners in the early days of the Washington State Military Transition and Readiness Council, and it's now supported by the Washington State Board of Community and Technical Colleges and focuses on connecting transitioning service members with career-connected learning prior to military separation. Partners want to discuss with stakeholders opportunities for expanding the model to other installations and surrounding schools, starting by discussing options and interest with installation educational service officers. The second initiative focuses on delivering Vet Corps cultural competency training to other higher education stakeholders. Vet Corps is an AmeriCorps program overseen by WDVA, which places veteran peer mentors in higher education institutions around the state. Part of the training for Vet Corps members includes a proven cultural competency training called Battle Mind to Home Mind. Partners are exploring repurposing this training to help build military cultural competency among higher education faculty and staff. Finally, the third initiative focuses on connecting Yes Vets recognized employers with campus career offices. Yes Vets is a nationally recognized employer recognition program for employers in Washington State who commit to hiring veterans. Partners are exploring connecting Yes Vets recognized employers with campus career offices that are helping veterans use their education to start new careers. The fourth community of practice on apprenticeship and career-connected learning is focusing on two initiatives. The first initiative will focus on connecting transitioning service members to real-time apprenticeship opportunities. Since apprenticeship training is connected to actual jobs, participation is contingent on transitioning service members being immediately available to begin when an apprenticeship slot opens. To facilitate this connection, partners will be doing a pilot with the Pac Mountain Work Experience Program, which already has a partnership at JBLM that allows transitioning service members in the last 90 to 120 days of their service to begin an experience-based job training program with a civilian employer. Prior to this window, the WDVA Apprenticeship Specialist will collaborate with the JBLM TAP and CSP programs to brief and advise transitioning service members on potential apprenticeship and related work experience opportunities. The second initiative will focus on growing apprenticeship-ready employers. This effort will involve the WDVA Apprenticeship Specialist reaching out to and assisting employers who have an interest in developing apprenticeship model hiring programs that recruit transitioning service members and veterans. Finally, the fifth community of practice on entrepreneurship is focusing on two areas. The first initiative focuses on increasing entrepreneurship opportunities in the gig economy for both veterans and spouses. Preliminary efforts have included 1. Developing a virtual gig economy orientation through the Veterans Business Opportunity Center, and 2. A public-private partnership to connect veterans and spouses with online gig economy platforms through veterangig.com. The second initiative focuses on increasing virtual training opportunities. Like many of our groups, our entrepreneurship partners have had to reduce their focus on networking opportunities and focus more on support that can be delivered virtually. This includes pushing out more webinars, webcasts, and similar events that can be delivered on virtual platforms and scaled across greater geographic areas. So that's where we stand at the moment. Our hope is, even with COVID waning and as we begin to move to less social distancing restrictions, we'll still be able to leverage the new learning we've gained around remote service delivery to meet the needs of more veterans and military spouses. We do expect that we will convene the Transition and Readiness Council's Executive Committee again in late summer or fall. Between now and then, we will have additional staff to move some of our initiatives along. Until then, if you have any questions or thoughts, please feel free to contact me at marks@dva.wa.gov.